This podcast is brought to you in part by Sing and Dog Double Reed Supplies. Sing and Dog Double Reeds is an online double reed shop and one of the largest suppliers of high quality and affordable professional and student reeds for oboe and bassoon in the USA. Please visit www.singanddog.com to see all of their products. That's SINGINDOG.com.
This episode is sponsored in part by MKL Reeds. MKL is the one-stop shop for handmade oboe reeds where you can try reeds from various makers and select the one that is best for you. Visit mklreeds.com and enter coupon code DOUBLEREEDDISH for free shipping on your first order. That's coupon code DOUBLE_REED_DISH, all caps, for free shipping on your first order.
Hi, I'm Galit Kaunitz.
And I'm Jackie Wilson, and you're listening to Double Reed Dish,
a podcast for oboists, bassoonists,
and the people who love them. Hey Galit, it's episode 4.
Yay, I love episode 4.
I am so excited because we just upgraded our SoundCloud account, and this gives us access to a whole new world of statistics, and we have learned that we have a lot of international listenership, which is super cool.
Yes, and also a whole new world of page refreshing for me.
So we wanted to shout out some of our international listeners, some of the countries that people are tuning in to Double Reed Dish from. So some of our heavy hitters, shout out to Canada, our neighbors in the north. Shout out to Australia, our third.
What's up, Australia?
Yes, third most popular country, Australia, listening to us. And then rounding out the top 4, the United Kingdom. So that's super cool. Other noteworthy listenership from Brazil, France, Germany, the Netherlands, man, all over, Mexico, Israel, so, and Bulgaria. Yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate it so much.
So this episode, we said we are going to disclose our most embarrassing musical moments. And I don't know why we decided to do this, but
I've been dreading this since the moment you suggested it.
I guess I thought it would be a fun way to bond with our listeners. I don't know. Maybe we'll live to regret this. But in the interest of solidarity, we did a call on all our social media platforms for embarrassing moments, and we actually got some responses. You have one there for us to share?
Mm-hmm. I have a really good one. This is from an oboe player who listens to our podcast. And this listener, all of us oboe players know that the tuning A is the most nerve-wracking thing in orchestra rehearsal and concerts because everybody's listening to you and it's your own little solo every single time, and you have to do it more than one time. And this listener, for their embarrassing moment, accidentally had their fingers on 1 and 3 instead of 1 and 2 to give the A. And they said, you can just imagine what my face looked like after that sound happened. And to this listener, I relate to you, and I am so sorry, but I bet it was really funny, and hopefully everyone was laughing with you.
I can only imagine the amount of scary tuning A stories that we could get our hands on. I would bet almost everyone has one. I couldn't imagine having to give a tuning A. No, thank you.
The mental chatter in my head goes down by 100% after I give the tuning A. It's the most stressful thing I ever have to do.
Do you have an embarrassing moment to share, Galit?
Yes, my palms are sweating. I have 2 embarrassing moments. And the first one, we'll go back in chronological order. The first one happened when I was a student. I was assigned to play English horn on Scheherazade, which was really, really great, right? It's a really awesome English horn part, but there's a lot of time where you're not doing anything. You're tacit for a couple of movements before you actually get to play. So I was sitting there in the concert. We were on stage, and of course there are risers. And I'm sitting there, kind of playing with my reed, picking it up, putting it back down because I'm nervous. And I go to pick it up, and I dropped it under the riser.
No.
And I'm sitting there in the concert, the movement before I have to play the solo, and my reed is on the stage floor under the riser.
Did you have more than one?
Oh, I don't remember, but it didn't even occur to me to look for another reed. So what I did was slowly slide down my chair.
Oh my God.
So that I could bend down and pick up my reed off of the floor. And my good friend was sitting next to me playing second oboe, and he was shaking his head. Had his hands on his head. Like, you couldn't just leave it there. You couldn't just leave it on the stand. You had to play with it. Look what you did. And the conductor was really not pleased. And that was really embarrassing. So that's number one.
Well, we should tell the listeners that we did not share with each other our embarrassing moments ahead of time. So this is true responses from us. This is fun. I'm happy we're doing this now.
Wait until it's your turn, Jackie.
Oh,
So the second one happened, I don't want to say it happened to me because I did it, but it was in a professional audition for an actual orchestra. I was playing the excerpts in the audition in the first round, and I was thinking the whole time, like, oh, wow, this is going pretty well. Like, I'm really impressed with myself. I didn't think that I was going to play this well today. This is great. And I got myself so distracted. I was playing the fast La Scala solo, and I get to the last scale, which, as all oboists know, ends on a low C, and I played a C sharp. It was in a church. So it reverberated across this big, beautiful church. And there was this deafening silence. And I couldn't even breathe. And then the committee goes, "Thank you."
Thank you.
It was terrible.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny.
It was terrible. I did it to myself, just like pay attention. That's what I'm doing. Okay, Jackie, this was enough torture. Tell me your embarrassing moment.
Okay, I actually can't believe I'm going to create a written record of this embarrassing moment, but here we go. So mine is also from my student days. And I was fortunate enough to be invited to play in a master class at IDRS. And I'm going to be intentionally vague, but this master class was for an extremely prominent bassoonist playing an extremely standard piece.
Oh my God.
And I knew this piece really well. I actually considered it one of my stronger pieces. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to get this opportunity. Hooray. Awesome. And so I was so excited. I, of course, went and bought a new outfit, and I got new slacks. I got a brand new blouse, a button-up blouse, and I got a cardigan, and I tried it on in the dressing room. Perfect. We're good to go. And then this conference was in a location that was very hot. And as we know, the IDRS conference happens during the summer. And so I was like, man, I didn't realize how hot it would be out here. My outfit does not work. It's pants and a cardigan. But it's what I bought. So I'll just put it on right before the master class. So I put it on, and I walk over to the place. And so I get there, and the venue is a little bit too small for the prominence of this individual. It's more of a glorified classroom than
Mm-hmm.
a hall. And so I'm there, I'm warming up, and people are starting to file in, and then more people file in, and more people file in, and the classroom's getting really full. And in my student days, especially, I mean, IDRS is always a hard venue to play at. I think
Oh, totally.
you're playing for other experts, but especially as a
There's so much
student,
pressure.
right? And I'd never experienced it before. I was still very much a student, and I started getting these wheels spinning, going, every one of these people is a bassoonist, and every one of these people knows every note of the piece that you are about to play.
Oh my God.
And so I start getting nervous, and I get nerves, of course, we all do, and mine tend to be a little bit like butterflies in the chest and maybe some finger shaking. And these nerves, my leg started swaying. My right leg, especially my knee, started swaying like I was doing an Elvis impersonation or something.
Oh no.
And I was like, oh my gosh, because I'd never experienced my body doing that when it was nervous before. These were like ultimate nerves. And so I was like, my knee, what is my knee doing? Okay, people are going to see the knee. And I start getting really self-conscious about the knee. So I kind of excuse myself to try to calm myself down. And I look down, and my button up top, 2 of the buttons have come undone. And when I stand, I wear a sling strap, not a neck strap. And it was something about the combination of shirt and sling that did not work. And of course, idiot me did not try on the outfit with the bassoon on and like play through the thing to make sure the outfit worked.
Oh no.
So I'm like, okay, just rebutton it. It'll be fine. No. It was not fine. Every time I rebuttoned it, the shirt came undone. So here I am, very exposed on my chest region and legs swaying like there is something wrong with me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I try to find a safety pin. No one has a safety pin. So I don't know how I do it, but I take both sides of the shirt and I tie them around the sling strap in a knot. So I look like, I don't even know what I looked like. People were probably so confused. But of course, shirts are not made to be tied around straps. And so it kept coming undone, and I kept having to like re-tie it as I was like pretending to listen to this person, and I played okay given the circumstances.
How could you possibly play really well when all you can think about is exposing yourself to the entire audience?
It was the exposing myself, the knee, the nerves about who was listening. Oh, and the other thing I forgot is that in the process of the room filling up, they ran out of chairs. And so they started putting chairs to the side of us and then in the back of us. So we were literally surrounded on all sides by spectators.
No.
And I was just a complete mess. So the moral of the story here is try on your outfits with having played your instrument with them, go through your whole thing you're intending to play them with it on, which probably everyone listening is like, yeah, duh, of course we all do that. But I did not. And yes, try to focus on the music and the task at hand more than the number of people staring at you who already know it, and maybe your leg won't shake like Elvis. I don't know. So that's mine. Egads. I'm hoping that people are not like trying to figure out who I am now. And I remember a strange girl at IDRS 12 years ago.
Oh, what an innovative sling idea. Oh, and another moral of the story has to also be leave your reed in the reed case. And don't play with it while you're on risers.
Yes, learn from us.
My shout out this episode is a book called Networking for Nerds. It's by Alaina Levine, and the subtitle is Find Access and Land, Hidden Game-Changing Career Opportunities Everywhere. And I read this, I started it last year, and I keep coming back to it because I get a lot from it. And it's basically the author, I believe she was like a biology major or some kind of science in college, and she goes to get her PhD and realizes she doesn't want to teach college. And then what does she do with these degrees that she has in a very specified field? And she starts to, make connections with people outside her field, and eventually patches together a really fulfilling career writing about the, interesting things happening in science. And I found that to be really fascinating because, as we all know, a lot of what we do is dependent on the people that we know. And a lot of times you could not be considered for an opportunity because nobody knows who you are. And that can be really scary. And networking is something that has leaves a bad taste in your mouth, because you're like, oh man, it seems like I'm being ingenuine and, trying to find personal gain from friendships. But the way that she puts it all together is basically a lot like what we talk about with shine theory. And it's, we all help each other to the top. And the more people you know, the more you can mutually help each other. So I got a lot out of this book. I haven't finished it yet, but I have used it in class before for finding creative ways to approach networking in a way that works for you.
Very cool. My shout out this week is Trello.com. There's also an app, Trello, that you can find in the App Store. And this was introduced to me by a friend of the podcast, Laura Mediski. Hi, Laura. We love you.
Shout out to Laura.
And basically, she was telling me, one day after I lost my paper to-do list. Oh my gosh, Jackie, who uses a paper to-do list anymore? You got to get on Trello. And opened me up. Yes, exactly. Opened me up to a world of organization. I am very much a list person, and Trello allows me to have different types of lists for different types of things. You can even have different boards, kind of like a bulletin board, to put different lists on. If you want a more basic list, you can do it. Basically, there's no end to the amount of detail you could go into conceivably, but it allows you to really compartmentalize things for different parts of your life, family to-do list, professional to-do list, bill paying, whatnot. And you can also collaborate. So I believe Laura's Woodwind Quintet all share a board and split responsibilities. That way, you and I have a double read dish board. So it's kind of like a Google Doc where multiple people can collaborate and edit, but it's in this to-do list task type of format that I found really helpful. I now cannot live without my Trello app. So thank you, Laura. I was wrong. You are right. And everyone should check out Trello.com to get themselves organized. This podcast is brought to you in part by Double Reed Girl. Double Reed Girl offers handmade reeds and processed cane for oboe and English horn. All orders are custom made and a variety of options are available. Visit doublereadgirl.com for more info and let her know that you heard about Double Reed Girl on Double Reed Dish and get a discount on your order.
I use Double Reed Girl for my shaped English horn cane, and I'm always really satisfied with the quality and the price. You can find her at doublereadgirl.com. This podcast is brought to you in part by Vocal Majority Bassoon and Oboe Camp. Vocal Majority Bassoon and Oboe Camp is excited to announce the 2017 summer camp season is open for enrollment. Vocal Majority is a camp where double reed students of all levels, beginner through advanced, can come learn how to make reeds and play chamber music. Their 20 nationwide locations include Chicago, Virginia, California, Ohio, Las Vegas, Dallas, Austin, Houston, San Antonio, and Abilene. Campers learn reed making, participate in chamber music groups, attend master classes covering special topics and repertoire, and work with the best teachers in our field. From beginners to undergraduates, Vocal Majority has 3 camp divisions to suit students' needs.
Vocal Majority is thrilled to feature Erin Hannigan as their advanced camp oboe professor at the Dallas location this summer. I can't imagine a better learning opportunity than getting to hang out with other oboists and bassoonists who know the unique challenges of what we do in a friendly communal atmosphere like Vocal Majority offers. Make sure to visit www.vocalmajority.com for details and dates.
Our guest for this episode is the one and only Erin Hannigan, principal oboist of the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, oboe teacher at Southern Methodist University, and also a dog rescuer and beautiful human being. And I know, Jackie, you have also an experience with dog rescuing.
Yeah, it was so cool to hear Erin talk about her experiences with dog rescue and the Foster Dog Chronicles and Artists for Animals, which our listeners will hear about more in her interview. That I am a rescue dog mom. My Basset Hound Buddy, who I love very much and you know very well, was a rescue dog. And so without people like Erin doing this wonderful work, we wouldn't have that important part of our family. And in fact, the listeners will hear many of her rescues in the background, barking away and, getting their time on the podcast as well. So listen for that in the background.
We wouldn't have it any other way.
We are so excited to welcome to Double Reed Dish the amazing Erin Hannigan. Thank you so much for coming on. We're just so grateful for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Could we start off by having you introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us a bit about your educational training and how you got to where you are today?
Absolutely. I have a lot of people to thank in that little category, actually. I went to school at Oberlin College and studied with James Caldwell. And before that, I actually studied with Joe Turner in high school. He was the principal oboist of the Baltimore Symphony. And that was a really wonderful, eye-opening time studying with him. And then after Oberlin, which was amazing, so many of the students who were there at the time in the oboe studio, almost everybody has a really good career going as an oboist, performing or teaching. And then I went to the Eastman School of Music for my master's degree, and I can't say enough good stuff about Richard Kilmer. That just was a perfect combination, Oberlin and then Eastman with James Caldwell and Richard Kilmer.
Erin, would you tell us a little bit about how you started playing the oboe, and did you have anyone special who encouraged you to make music your profession?
I started when I was really young. I was in 3rd grade. I was actually right before 3rd grade, so I was 7. And my parents were very supportive of studying music. They both played for fun, in high school and wanted me to share in that same enjoyable high school activity. So I picked it up and studied with a teacher named Sherry Stroman, who was a local woodwind teacher. She taught, pretty much everything: saxophone, flute, oboe. And it just was right from the very start. It just felt right. And I knew by the time I was in 7th grade that I wanted to make a living playing the oboe. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew I wanted to do it as a career. As far as, encouragement, I would say, there was a lot of eye-opening in the opposite direction, actually. My teacher in high school, Joe Turner, said to me at one point, if you're planning on going into music, ask yourself this question first: is there anything that you love as much? And if there is, you should do that other thing, because at the time I was really, kind of taken aback. I was, thinking, how could he say that? He has a successful career. How could he say that? But honestly, that's something I find myself saying to students now, high school students, because you have to have that drive, because you're gonna get knocked on your butt. I don't care who you are, you're gonna get knocked on your butt many, many, many times. And if you don't love it, um, there's nothing to push you through those times. And you have to take this journey, this lifelong journey that never ends, and you have to continue with it. I think when you're that age in high school, I see my current high school students thinking this way a little bit. I at least I think they do, that once they're my age, it's all easy. All the hard work is done, but really the hard work just continues the entire journey.
So, what advice would you give to the younger version of yourself at that time, knowing what you know now?
Well, that's a funny question, because I feel like I've had to really make that a very recent question with a very specific target, because of, orchestras are going on strike. Our business is changing. And, so when I talk to my students, I want to make sure they know that not only do they have to be really excellent players, and I mean really excellent players, um, in order to work in this business. And we're not talking about getting an orchestral job. I mean, that's one target of success. I'm talking about making a living playing your instrument, because that to me is the definition of success. So not only do they have to be really excellent, they also have to advocate for what we do. And the main way I think students need to do that is to get out into the community and to make a difference. And I sort of live that as best I can. So I like to think that I'm passing that on to my students. But when we had several orchestras go on strike in 1 week, we had Fort Worth, we had Pittsburgh, we had Philadelphia. I talked to each of my students individually, and I said, "What are you going to do about this?" And they look at me blankly, because at that age you're young. Well, what am I going to do about this? Nothing. Um, the answer is, you're going to change the way you look at this career, and you're gonna be the difference. You're going to get out into the community, and you're going to show what it is that you do, and you're going to show what difference you can make with this gift you have. So that's a very long-winded answer, but I feel it's important right now, because I think a lot of students feel victim to our current state of things, when in reality they should feel a little bit empowered, because it's a time of change and not necessarily a bad one.
As a passionate dog mom to a rescue basset hound buddy, I noticed and admired the work that you've done volunteering for Operation Kindness, which is a no-kill animal shelter in North Texas, and also Artists for Animals, which is the nonprofit that you founded, as well as the Foster Dog Chronicles. So I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about those projects and what inspired you to embark on them.
Sure. Well, I'm very passionate about rescue animals, and here in Texas, the state of things is really rough. We have so many strays, and it's just a really difficult situation. And these animals are all wonderful, but I do find that a lot of times people want to adopt from breeders because they think rescue animals are damaged goods. So we'll start off with Foster Dog Chronicles. So we started fostering about 5 years ago, maybe 6, because some of our past fosters are now turning 5. We've fostered around 160 160, 170 animals over the course of that time. And, not only did I want to give those animals a place to recover, a place to flourish, a place to grow, I wanted to show the world how amazing they are. And I used to do that on my own personal Facebook page, but of course I have a lot of musician friends, probably many of whom aren't animal fans. And I thought, I'm asking a lot putting this on my professional page. So I decided to branch off with Foster Dog Chronicles. Now, the main point of Foster Dog Chronicles is to show the world these, amazing animals, because litter after litter after litter, the moms are perfect, the puppies are perfect, the puppies are raised in an environment where I don't care what breeder you go to, you are not going to adopt a more socialized puppy, because we spend a ton of time with each and every one of those pups. Then every dog we foster is an Operation Kindness animal. So Operation Kindness is a fantastic place. I'm also on the board of Operation Kindness, so I'm very deeply entrenched with that place. They rescue, rehab, help recover about 5,000 animals per year, which is amazing for a fairly small shelter. They are the original no-kill shelter here in North Texas, and really they're the only one. A lot of times they take, animals who are out of time. Unfortunately, that happens a lot here. Shelters are always full. They take animals that have run out of time, meaning they're about to be euthanized simply for space, and they give them a space at Operation Kindness, which gives them, basically anytime any animal walks through the door at Operation Kindness, they're safe forever. So that's why I'm really passionate and really into supporting them, because I feel their mission is incredible. They do so much to always have a full shelter, and then their foster system has basically 150 animals in it at any given time. So that's pretty impressive. Then, part of this outreach concept that I have, get out in the community and make a difference. Whatever your passion is, get out there as an artist and make a difference. I started a nonprofit with a photographer partner named Teresa Berg called Artists for Animals. Now, Artists for Animals is basically a group of artists who come together who want to use their passion to raise money for rescue animals. So every year, for instance, we do a concert called the Concert for Kindness. This year it's in March. And last year we raised, just through an hour-long concert, classical music concert, chamber music partnered with photography, and a silent auction. I'll get more into that in a second. We raised $54,000, which went to Operation Kindness. The year before that, we raised about $28,000, which purchased an adoption vehicle for Operation Kindness. We give several performances throughout the year. Sometimes they're benefits for Artists for Animals, since we do have bills to pay. And then sometimes it's a benefit for another rescue. We're to the point now where we're able to start making some small grants to some local rescues, which is a wonderful thing, because a little bit of money can make a big difference to a rescue organization, save more lives. So a lot of Dallas Symphony players have taken part in Artists for Animals and will again this year. This year we also have the Avant Chamber Ballet as part of our performance. We involve students. The SMU Oboe Studio has been involved for probably 6 years now, as long as we've been going. I also involve my high school kids, and I take a rescue animal. I should say we take a rescue animal, because it's a team of us, to the Booker T. Washington High School for Visual and Booker T. Washington High School for Performing and Visual Arts. We take a dog or a cat from Operation Kindness to Booker T. High School every week to their advanced placement life drawing class. And they draw, paint, sculpt those animals, and then that artwork is what goes into our silent auction. And there's a lot of good that comes from that. We're teaching the next generation about rescue animals. There's not one kid in that high school class that's going to adopt from a breeder. And then also we're teaching young artists the power that they hold to give back to the community. We walk in that first day and we say to them, we're artists too. And you don't know the power you have with your unique way of giving back. And you see the light bulb goes on, because so much time as artists we spend by ourselves in a little room, working on our art. It's a very solitary pursuit. And the moment you realize that you can go out with this passion you have, and you can make an impact, it's empowering. And we want young artists, again, looking to classical music as an example right now. I want my students, I want my young artists to realize that they can go out there and make an impact. And it's what we're doing is not about us. My career, it's not about me. It's about what I can do with this gift I have. What difference can I make?
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's really important perspective to know that you can take your gifts and turn it into something that the world really needs and could benefit from. And it's really inspiring to look at the videos on the Foster Dog Chronicles and look at what you're doing in Dallas and, actually doing what we all should be doing. So thank you for that. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about one of the other incredible things that you do, which is you're the principal oboist of the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. Can you talk a bit about how you prepare for weekly rehearsals and concerts playing principal oboe with the Major American Symphony?
Sure. Well, the preparation starts way back, every year in the summer. So we have a good amount of time off in the summer. We're off from basically the beginning of July through the end of August. So that's when I really learn a good bit of the music. I listen to some of the new stuff. I review some of the stuff, that we've done before. And then, of course, being an oboist, my week in and week out schedule is so focused around reads. Our schedule every week, this is a typical subscription week. So we go into rehearsals Tuesdays. Some weeks it's a double. So we'll have a 10 to 12:30, 2 to 4 rehearsal on that day. And then Wednesday's the same thing. And then Thursday morning rehearsal. And then we have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday concerts, which that's a lot actually for a major American orchestra. A lot of places don't do 4 anymore, but we're still selling them, so we're still doing 4. So that leaves Monday to, do some last-minute reviewing of music. I also teach my SMU kids on Monday, and Sunday night, Monday, I'm doing some finishing up of reads, so I have what I need for the week. So that's my basic schedule. It is a lot because, of course, every single week it's a brand new program. And those Pops weeks, I actually kind of look forward to those because that's a chance to get my feet underneath me again and catch up a little bit. But it's definitely a busy schedule, but, one that I really enjoy. I really like going through a different program every single week.
You also recently commissioned a new work by Jeremy Gill called Serenata Concertante. What was the commissioning experience like, and how did you prepare for the performance, which you did with the Dallas Symphony?
It's such a funny story. It just, the way things work out is, this is an example of that. I've wanted to do that for a long time. We have something called the Grant for Principal Musicians, which gives each principal musician in the Dallas Symphony play money. So, I've made 3 CDs with that money. I've bought some equipment with that money. And I have always wanted to commission a piece. So I thought about it for a good long time. I wanted to really make the right choice in composer, someone who would, consider me as a player, someone who I could work with, and not just sort of be a victim to whatever was written. So I went to school with Jeremy Gill, and I approached him about writing a piece, writing an oboe concerto. Except for I didn't want it to be called oboe concerto because we have enough of those. And he was wonderful. He just from the start he said, "Okay, what are your favorite pieces? Okay, and then what are the pieces you don't like so much? Okay, so then I'm going to start working on this. I hope to have the first section to you by such and such date." And then, it all came together that way. And the piece that I got is absolutely wonderful. And I think my favorite thing about it is that I don't think I knew this when he first sent it to me, but he had to write a letter for some grant proposal, and I had to I think, look it over or give a copy of it to Dallas Symphony, something like that. Anyway, it said in there that he considered me as a player, but he also considered me as a person and what I do with my life, in music and outside of music. So, rescue dogs, in other words. And he said it was a very bright, cheerful, light-hearted piece, whereas a lot of his music is darker. So he really did consider me as a player, me as a person, and that was, for me then, it made it very clear that I just made such the right choice in going with Jeremy. And so he sent this great piece, and the next step is for the music director to hear it, to make sure that it's something that we can present to the Dallas audiences. Just because you commission it doesn't mean you get to perform it. So he did a piano reduction, and we played it for the music director, for Jaap van Sveden, and a couple other friends of his or colleagues of his. And the moment I stopped playing, they just went nuts. And it was supposed to have been performed on kind of a side series called Remix, which is more focused on contemporary music. But the moment he heard it, he said, "This has to go on the main series." It means putting it off a year because the main series is scheduled way ahead of time. But it has to go on the main series, and I want to conduct it. So that was really, such a gift because, as I said, it was supposed to go on a side series with a different conductor. We never have our music director for that remix series, but thankfully he heard it and he just ran with it, and he was fantastic. Of course, the week of, it just ended up being a real successful premiere, which I'm glad about, and the orchestra really liked it. You never know, I guess I didn't know when I commissioned it how vulnerable you feel when you are bringing this new piece to the world. But the Dallas audiences really loved it, as did the performers in the DSO. We actually recorded it last spring. That's something that's still under wraps somewhat with the Boston Modern Orchestra Project. So hopefully this spring it'll come out on a disc of all Jeremy's music. Hopefully this spring it'll come out.
I think about all these activities that you've described, your philanthropy, your teaching, and your performing, and I wonder how you go about self-care and how you balance work and life as a person.
Well, that's something I probably need to be better at, honestly. um, I I have a huge list of things on my plate at any given moment, and the oboe cannot budge from its spot. It's always number one on that list, and if it's not, it shows. So, there are many things on that list that cannot be scooted down. So, I do my best to take good care of myself, because if you're completely drained, you have nothing left to give for any of those other important things. I'm very into physical fitness. I feel like that has to be a priority, and then also, being healthy, on healthy habits on top of that, eating well. Um, I think just taking care of yourself. Some weeks I'm better at it than others, but just sort of a general level of care, keeping yourself active. Um, and when you have any question about, should I really spend this next half an hour to an hour working out? Well, if you're not going to take care of yourself, then you're not going to be able to take care of anybody else. So I try to remember that and try to keep, you know, uh, all that stuff a priority. But like I said, I could be better.
What repertoire or resources stick out in your mind as great teaching tools in your studio at SMU?
Well, I feel like I got so much out of my path when I was at Oberlin and then into Eastman, that I tend to focus on the same thing. We start with the Barrett book. I will say that because the world has changed, because the world is always evolving. I introduced things earlier. Like kids have to be able to play the Strauss concerto now at a very young age. I didn't start working on that until I was in grad school. But, I always have my students play that on one of their juries, or at least, a movement per jury in undergrad. And of course, there are many concertos that fit on that same kind of basic list. Of course, the Mozart concerto. I mean, my high school kids are working on the Mozart concerto. The Mozart quartet. We also work on Fairling. And we also work on excerpts quite a bit. I mean, that's such a focus, even from, I'd say, sophomore year on. Freshman year is pretty much reserved for the Barrett book. But then we start working excerpts in already starting sophomore year. And that's younger than I would have done as a teacher, 10 years ago. And I didn't work on excerpts other than for summer festivals. When I was at Oberlin, we just didn't do that. So, I'd say it's very similar to what I did at Oberlin and Eastman, except for with consideration for the fact that we've evolved and things have to happen earlier now.
One of the things we always like to ask our guests on Double Reed Dish is about these experiences that every musician has with be it performance anxiety or imposter syndrome. And we wondered if you have any hints for our listeners or for us of how you have gone about approaching those things in your own career.
Well, I mean, it's a very real thing, and I see it, in my students, and I feel it still myself. It doesn't go away. That goes under the category of your lifelong, progress within this career. You still get nervous. I was still nervous before going out and playing the Gill. And if I, do something next year, I'm gonna fight that same feeling. But, maybe actually fight is the word that I want to bring up, because I think the more you accept it, the better you feel. So it's not fighting nervousness. It's actually just, you're going to feel that way. So embrace it. Just, it is what it is. So just embrace it and realize it's there, and then do your best with it. Now, sometimes it's debilitating, and then it's a deeper conversation, and there are definitely things that you can do for that. But I still feel it, and I think I probably always will, that spike of adrenaline. There was a point in time, I mean, if we're being completely honest, which I think we have to be, since students will listen to this, but there was a point in time when I did use beta blockers, and I was one of those people who was firmly against it. And then, I started taking orchestral auditions, and I realized, first of all, so many people were taking them. Second of all, that spike, if you have that spike of adrenaline, if you have 3 or 4 rounds of an audition, which does happen, at least it happened to me, in one day, by the fourth time, you're worn out. I mean, your nervous system is completely worn out. So getting yourself up there again to that place that you need to be to really, stay focused, it can't happen. Anyway, so I did take them for a little while during all that period of time when I was auditioning. And what it did was it kind of reset my physical expectations. So, I no longer got the shaking. I no longer got some of the more difficult nervous reactions. They didn't happen because, beta blockers actually takes that away. So it reset those expectations. It reset my body's response. So I didn't need to take them anymore because my body just didn't go that way. I don't know if that's helpful to anyone or not, but when I have students who really struggle, I certainly don't try to talk them out of it, out of taking them. I just feel like in this world, you do what you have to do to be able to go out and do your best. And I could sit here and tell you I'm firmly against it, and you should just be a stronger person. But it's a hard world out there, and it's a tough world, performance-wise. We all know how hard it is to get a job. So whatever you need to do.
One of the questions that I've been itching to ask you is about your approach to reed making. And I wonder if you could describe your philosophy to reed making, if you're willing to share routines and habits, and the advice that you would give us on reed making.
Oh boy. Well, it's such a big mountain, isn't it? Well, I mean, I'll tell you one thing I feel strongly about, at least from a student standpoint. I always teach my students my way of making reeds, and I want them to stick with that for the first, 2 to 3 years here at SMU. Now, it's not because I think, it's my way or the highway. It's actually more that I always want them to have a home base. So, first 2 to 3 years, we use the same equipment. We maybe vary on gouging machine. If their gouging machine's working, I'm perfectly happy to go along with that. We do not vary on shaper tip. So everybody's using the same equipment. We're using the same staples. We're using all of the same stuff. So that way, when they do start to branch out with some more kind of individualized needs in the reed making, when they get a little bit more advanced, they always have a home base. They always know, okay, well, A plus B equals C. I know that. So, even though right now I'm changing up the equipment, I know I can go back to my home base at any time. And I feel it's really important to have that home base. So I try to teach that to my students. As far as my reed making habits, honestly, I try to keep it as simple as I can. I know some people get very involved in knife sharpening, and it can take a huge chunk of time, and I don't have a huge chunk of time for knife sharpening. So my approach is very simple. It works, but it is very simple. I feel like, my reeds have evolved, so I'm definitely open to new things. But when I do introduce something new, I only introduce one thing, and nothing else changes. So, if I get some new staples in the mail and I get a new shaper tip in the mail, only one thing is going to change, and then I'll consider the other thing a little bit later. So always, approaching reed making with home base in mind, because things can spiral off that track so quickly, and finding your way back can be so difficult. And with the ever moving target of the perfect gouging machine. We need to know what's not working. When something's not working, we need to be able to just say it's exactly this. And the only way you can do that is if you're going from this place of a home base.
Do you have any past performances that stick out in your mind as your favorite or fond memories that you reflect upon?
Yeah, I would say when I did the Strauss concerto here with Dallas, um, Douglas Boyd was conducting. Of course, he's an oboist, and it just was. I felt like he understood every gesture, every breath. I mean, that was really great. We've had some incredible performances with our music director here in Dallas, and paring it down to just one is tough. But when we performed in the Concertgebouw, which he was the concertmaster of the Concertgebouw Orchestra, so it was kind of a coming home for him. That combined with the magic of the place and the fact that we were on a European tour, that performance was just absolutely. It just stands apart in its own category. Um, and then performing the Gill is another real standout in my mind. That was something. Bringing this piece out for the first time. It's also uh, for people who haven't heard it. It's all in one movement, but in the middle of the piece is literally, this is not an exaggeration, a page and a half cadenza, and the whole orchestra just sits there. It's kind of a la Goosen's concerto, but without any interaction from the orchestra. That was, I mean, to see the audience's response to that. I mean, you're standing up there playing a concerto, and all of a sudden you're by yourself for about a solid minute, which doesn't sound long probably to the average person, but you're standing up there with an oboe in your hands doing acrobatics in front of a packed concert hall. It's memorable. So that was definitely a standout performance in my mind.
Erin, with all of the performing that you do you have a warm-up habit and scale system that you use consistently?
I don't. This is going to sound strange. I will play the first couple pages of the Vado Mecum, especially if I've taken a couple days off and I need to get back in, or the Farrelling studies. I find Farrelling to be my lifelong, kind of warm-up partner. But I also want to know that I can get the oboe out at any time and not feel that I have to warm up in order to play well. So there are times I will start out a practice session with Farrelling or with some slow, even, just sort of getting the air moving scales. But there are a lot of times when I'll just get the oboe out and just start playing. So I won't say that I have a real system for warming up. Now, my students, I do expect them to have a real system. I expect them, depending on the stage of the game, I expect them to do long tones at the start of every single practice session. I expect them to do scales. I expect them to do all of those things that, remind them of the important things, the air embouchure balance, the air flow in general. Starting out practice sessions that way for students, I think, is hugely important.
When you consider the entirety of the oboe repertoire, this can be solo music, chamber music, or orchestral, what are some of your all-time favorite pieces to play?
Oh boy. I love the Strauss concerto. I really love Shostakovich solos. I mean, just love them. I also love chamber orchestra repertoire, which we don't get to do very often, but I love it anyway. I love the Bach Oboe d'Amour Concerto. That's probably at the top of my list, quite honestly. I did that with Dallas a couple years ago with Jaap van Zweden, and really I just love that piece. Um, Beethoven, Beethoven 3, it's incredible. Schubert, great. Symphony, love playing that. I will never get tired of playing that. There's just so much. But I'd say those are probably the highlights. Anything by Bach, doesn't matter what it is.
Where or to whom do you look for inspiration?
Well, this has a couple different facets to it. As far as other musicians, Richard Kilmer is my lifelong mentor. That relationship, that teacher-student relationship, it has evolved, and it's not what it was, of course, when I was in grad school, but I still look to him for inspiration, not just in music, but in life. He has come to as many performances of mine as he's been able to. He came to 2 of 3 Gill performances last year. He came to my Strauss concerto performance. He's just a lifelong mentor, a lifelong teacher. As far as other oboists, there are so many. I view what Alex Klein has done over his career as being really inspirational. He's had struggles with vocal dystonia, and he's overcome them to come back and win the Chicago Symphony job twice. Who does that? Just truly an inspirational person. And in between, of course, he did a lot of really important work in between his 2 times with the Chicago Symphony. You have to honor that. And he was a past teacher as well. I actually studied with him for a semester at Oberlin. James Caldwell was on sabbatical, so I feel lucky to have had that time with him. Also, I think people think what I do in music and what I do with the animals, people probably think of those as being 2 very different things. But honestly, I get so much life inspiration from working with the animals. They teach me so much that directly is linked to what I do in music and what I put out there, as far as what people are hearing. All those things that make you a musician, all those things that we do as humans that make it that computers will never take over our jobs, all those human emotions. The animals, the work, I think just also making a difference. Again, this is another angle of importance here, but taking what I do, taking that hard work that can sometimes be tedious, that hard oboe work, and making it about something outside myself, that is a huge source of inspiration for me. Taking it and making a difference, making an impact on those days, when playing an orchestra is hard, and it is, on those days that feel a little tedious, and there will be those. If you take your art and you apply it to something, and make a real difference, it will inspire you. There's purpose.
Well, this interview has been so inspiring I hope Galit won't mind for me speaking for the both of us, and we cannot thank you enough for giving us and our listeners your precious time. When they inevitably want to follow up with you, where can they find you on the internet?
I do have a website, erinhannigan.com, although I think it's probably sadly outdated, but my contact info is there. Also, there's the Foster Dog Chronicles, and of course, I'm on Facebook. And I'm happy to answer any questions anybody may have. I'm not unreachable. I'm completely reachable. whether you have questions about animals, questions about artists for animals, or questions about, of course, the oboe.
Perfect. And we'll link to all of those in the description of the episode for our listeners.
Great.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
That was such an inspiring interview. I hope you enjoyed it. And be sure to tune in next month. We have a special theme for February. It's going to be Mentor Month.
Yay.
And we are, yay! And we are going to interview both of our teachers that we completed our doctorates with.
In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and also rate and review. That'll help more people get to know about Double Reed Dish. And also check out our brand new website, www.doublereeddish.com. And you can find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can also go to our SoundCloud page. We're everywhere. Also, feel free to send us an email at doublereeddish@gmail.com. We love getting your guys' comments and hearing from you. It's the highlight whenever we get one of those messages. So thank you to our sponsors, and thank you for listening.